Hi guys, it's Parker here from TestPrepChampions.com, and I'm all dressed up tonight because I just got back from getting engagement photos with my girlfriend of going on 6 years now. I shouldn't say girlfriend, my fiance now, but I just got back from that. I wanted to give you guys a really quick update about my new course, the Time Management Transformation. So also in this video, I'm going to tell you guys, give you guys one time management trick that can save you up to, I shouldn't say up to, at least 5 days worth of time in the next year. So wouldn't it be great if you could gain back about 5 days worth of time over the next year? So I'm going to show you guys how to do that. So you'll want to stay tuned for that at the end of the video. But first I want to give you guys a quick update about the time management transformation. So first of all, what is it? Well, we all know that, so say you're a college student, for example, right? So we know that it's really important to get good grades, okay? So we all know that grades don't always prove how smart you are, right? But as far as getting into grad school or as far as getting a good job, building a good resume, we know that it's a competitive world out there. It really is. And so they are important, right? So you want to do well. You want to be better. You always want to push yourself to get more done. But at the same time, I'm willing to bet that you also want to get more of the good life, right? Now, the good life for you, that might mean going out to parties, okay? Or the good life for you, that could be just hanging out with friends, staying in, watching Netflix or whatever, just having a chill night. Or it could also mean getting together with your family, spending more time with those that you're close to. Whatever it is, you want to be able to do both. And the whole time management transformation, the point of it is that wherever you're at now, you can really transform your time management skills. So I want to show you how you can double or even triple your time management skills and how you can triple your productivity. And that's really the point of the course. So I'm going to show you guys some footage here. You can watch the last two videos. I'm going to put them down below, links to them. You'll want to check those out because I show you the first look and the second look. So you can really see how this course has the development of this course. But I'm going to give you guys one last look at it here. And at the end of the video, I'm going to show you or tell you that thing I was going to tell you about, that time management trick that can save you up to 5 days worth of time this year. So I'm going to switch the screen now, and this is going to come out this Tuesday, which is August 14th. So look forward to that. Thank you.
Okay, so we're now inside the time management transformation. I'm still finalizing the course, so it might look a little bit different, but I'm not expecting to change the layout too much. So if you've been following the development over the last few videos I filmed, I think I got up to video 7. And now I've added 7 more videos, so I'm up to 14 videos, and it clocks in at about 5 hours worth of footage in these 14 videos. And so I really wanted to be as thorough as possible and give you everything that you need to know to really help you improve your time management skills. Right away, there's definitely actionable advice here that you're going to be able to start using right away. So you'll get results right away, and over time, if you stick with it, the results are going to go up more and more. And so what I really want to show you here is a little bit of video 13, beating procrastination and maximizing focus. You'll see there's a lesson download that comes along with it, and that's a big list of 20 top tools and apps for maximizing your focus. And so that comes along with the lesson here, and I've got a big list of, they're all free, unless something radical has changed since I made this up, but they're all free, or they'll have premium. You can do upgrade to the premium versions, but I don't really think you need to for any of them. But there's a big list here. One of the cool ones for iOS is hours time tracking, and it lets you set a timer for studying or going to the gym and however you're spending your time really, and then over time it's going to generate data and insights to help you really optimize your time. So that's a cool one for iOS. Another cool one is that I really recommend very frequently is Stay Focused for the Chrome. It's Chrome web browser extension if you used Chrome. It's going to let you temporarily block out access to distracting websites. You can also set a time allowance for like Facebook, say, and then once your time is up, it's going to restrict your access. Leaf block for Firefox is basically the same thing. So that whole list is going to be in there. And as always, from the last videos I mentioned this, but I'll mention it again. So there's a private progress report that you can use to check in with me. Let me know how the course is going. Let me know if you have any questions or concerns. And of course, you can always email me or reach out to me on the contact form on my website. But for Time Management Transformation members, if you go on and join the course, once I open up the cart, make it available, you'll have that direct line to me where I'll get in touch with you. So if you use these contact forms that's built into the course, I'll get back to you, usually definitely within the same day, if not within a few hours. So there's that. But there's 2 things I want to tell you before we jump into the footage. So the first thing that you need to know is that The footage I'm going to show you, it's not the actual footage that is in the course. This is from an earlier take. But that being said, it is a very accurate representation of what the final version is going to look like, but it might be a little bit different. So if you go on and you enroll in the course, you buy the course, don't be surprised if it's a little bit different. So I'm going to show you footage from an earlier version, and also I'm going to skip around a little bit, so it's not going to be necessarily in order, because I think this is a 29-minute video, so I'm not going to roll the whole thing. I'm just going to show you some parts of it. And then I'm also going to show you a little bit of the video 14 as well. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to that now. Okay, so we're back again here, and this lesson is on procrastination, and I think it's going to really help you out. So let's not waste time, let's get right into it here. So, let's think about how big of a problem is this really? Well, Study Mode, which is an international network that provides students with online learning tools, they did a big study where they surveyed 1,300 students in high school and college, and roughly 87%, keep that in mind, 87% of these high school and college students in the group said that they procrastinate on their schoolwork, and roughly 47%, so almost half, said that it negatively impacts their grades. So yeah, this is just one study, but that's 1,300 people, 87% said that they procrastinate. And so I think that this is really staggering. So the main key point here is that everyone procrastinates, or well, almost everybody procrastinates, right? So if you can just discipline yourself to overcome procrastination, you're going to be able to outperform most students. Okay, you really will, right? So being able to get yourself to follow through and being able to write something down that you have to get done on a to-do list and map it out and then actually go and do it. Okay, believe it or not, a lot of people can't do that, okay? It sounds really simple, it is a simple concept, but task execution, it's not as easy as it sounds. A lot of it is mental. You've got to overcome these mental stumbling blocks or these, unconscious scripts, whatever you want to call them, running around in your head that for whatever reason stop you from doing something. So, sometimes if you're working on a project or you're working on an assignment, for whatever reason, you might start making progress and then you just hit the wall and all of a sudden, you think of a billion other things you have to do, or you just want to sit around all day on Netflix and stuff. And, every now and then it's fun to sit around all day on Netflix. I'm not bashing that by any means. I think that sounds like a fun way to spend your time. But when you've got stuff to do that you've planned out that's important, it's definitely not the best way to spend your time. So keep in mind here that everyone procrastinates. There's different reasons why we procrastinate. I'm going to focus on two of the big ones here. But you got to know yourself, and you've got to understand, when you're procrastinating, become aware of it, and how to get yourself back on track. But the point here is that it doesn't really matter how smart you are. So you can have a genius IQ, you can just be off the charts intellectually, but if you can't discipline yourself to stick with things and you can't get anything done, does how smart you are really matter? I'd say it doesn't really matter at all. I'm sure you already know that we do live in a distracted world. And millennials, like myself, I was born in the millennial generation. Most people say millennials were those born before 2000. Then after that, it gets into the next generation. I don't know. I don't want to argue with the specifics here, but people who have grown up in the age of where smartphones, internet technology, connectivity has been big, usually get a bad rap for being distracted. And I love my technology. I love my smartphones just as much as the next person. But the thing is that being distracted, it really can hurt you, not only when you're sitting in class and you need to focus, but also just in general when you've got to get stuff done. And there are two different types of distraction that we have to understand. The first is external, and the second is internal. And external distractions tend to be a little bit easier to deal with than internal. So that's where I want to start with here. So what exactly are these external distractions? Well, external distractions are basically anything that comes from the external world, right? So this could be demands on your time from other people, phones going off, car horns blasting, sirens, any stimuli from your environment that is causing you mental fatigue or causing you to have trouble concentrating. All right, and so the best way to handle these external distractions is to start exercising as much control over your study environment as possible, right? So if you're studying in a coffee shop and there's, silverware clanking, people coming in and out, the doors opening all the time, you keep getting, cold air coming in and going out, and people talking, there's music playing. If you can't study there, if you're just not focused, okay, pick up and leave. Go somewhere else. Go find a quiet corner somewhere in a building or a library to crawl into. If you're having trouble studying and working in a place, okay, you really got to take the initiative and figure out where you study best. Some people like to study in absolute silence. That's kind of how I am. Some people work best with a little bit of white noise in the background. Some people, they can sit in a coffee shop and just narrow in on what they're doing without focusing, without, being distracted by what's going on around them. I remember one time when I was studying for my dental school admissions test, I was at my house and I was going to study, and the Wi-Fi went down for whatever reason. It was like, I don't know, some kind of act of fate for whatever reason. It was really strange. My Wi-Fi never went down, but that was like the one time it did. And I had to study. It was like the day before. It was the day before my test for the dental school admissions test, and I went to a coffee shop and I was like taking a practice test or whatever. And there was someone doing a job interview right beside me, and of course the guy wasn't really. He was giving answers that were kind of like out from left field, and it was very hard to focus because it was so entertaining. And he was talking so loud that you couldn't help but hear him. But anyway, that's an aside. But the point here is that try to control what you can control. Study in places, and whether it's putting earplugs in, quiet headphones, whatever. Just try to study in places that are going to help you focus. Okay, and so now sometimes, like if you're sitting in class and a siren's going off, you can't do anything about that. So I really want you to understand that paying attention. It's not just about being able to concentrate on a stimulus. It's also about not paying attention to all the other stimuli in the environment that's competing for your attention. Okay, and so there's a technique called the spider technique, where it's not so much a technique so much as just kind of like a mindset, but it's one of the best techniques to start improving your focus. It really helps you kind of zero in on one target, right? So if you're sitting in a classroom, the target that you need to be paying attention to is the teacher, right? This is called the spider technique, but why is it called the spider technique? Well, did you know that spiders have really bad eyesight? They're practically blind. So they don't use their eyes to track prey. What they instead use are finely tuned abilities to sense vibrations, okay? So when an unfortunate victim, or I should say a bug, lands on a spider's web, there's vibrations that the spider detects because their eyesight is so bad in most cases. Okay, I'm not an expert in spiders, but I do know a thing or two about biology. So basically, when the bug or the victim lands on the web, okay, the vibrations are going to tell the spider that a victim is stuck. And, nature's cruel sometimes. I think we can all know where the story's going, but the idea here is that, spiders use vibrations to track their prey. So now imagine that you go up to a spider's web and you take a vibrating tuning fork and you use it, and the web vibrates. The spider is going to feel that the web is vibrating. They're going to think that a bug was caught, and the spider's going to come out and look for the bug because of the vibrations, okay? And so when the spider sees that there is no bug, okay, the spider is, smart, somewhat smart relatively, I guess, to other insects. But the spider comes out, or arachnids, I don't know. Don't quote me on my terminology here, but the spider comes out, and after multiple times of using the tuning fork right next to the spider web, the spider learns that there's nothing there, and they're going to ignore it. They're just going to tune it out. So you want to kind of think like the spider here, and what you want to do is, when you're sitting in class and there's sirens or noises or, other people carrying on conversations, and you can't put earplugs in, obviously, because then you're not going to be able to hear the teacher, but you need to focus, acknowledge what's going on around you. You say to yourself in your head, hey, there's doors slamming, there's all these noises going on, it's hard to focus, they're there, but I don't need to focus on them, and turn your attention right back to the teacher, right? So let the sounds be there. Tune them out. They don't matter. Acknowledge them that they're there and just let them be there without responding. Okay, pay attention to what's going on in front of you. And so that's just a little technique I wanted to share there as an aside. But anyway, let's keep moving. But that's external distractions. And so before we jump right into internal distractions, we need to understand a little bit about two different ways that the brain regulates attention span, okay? So did you know that your brain uses two separate systems to regulate your attention? So for improving concentration, you really need to understand this. So I'm going to call the first system the selfish system, and the second system the selective system. Now you have to understand, these are just metaphors, right? So, when I say the selfish system, or the selective system, okay, these are my terms, okay? I made these terms up to talk about real processes in the brain because using metaphors is a lot easier to understand this, and I'm not a neuroscience expert, so I don't know everything there is to know about the brain. I mean, nobody does, but I don't know. I know something about it, but not really that much about the specific regions of the brain and how they interact, like really in depth. So, but to help us understand that, we need to think in terms of like this concept of the selective system and the selfish system. All right, and so the idea here is that there's these multiple regions of the brain, and if you really want to know more about them, the book that you want to read is called Focus, The Hidden Driver of Excellence by Daniel Goleman. It's the best book on attention span that I've ever read, hands down. Although Deep Work by Cal Newport, that's a really great book on focus and how to get work done, but it doesn't really talk so much about, the brain and top-down processing and bottom-up processing, which is really what the selective system and selfish system are all about, where the selective system is top-down processing, the selfish system is bottom-up processing, but we don't need to know that for this course. But if you do want to know more detail about this, go check out that book. It's The Hidden Focus, The Hidden Driver of Excellence by Daniel Goleman. But anyway, you want to think of the selfish system as your me-first system because it's essentially ruled by your emotions. It's automatic, involuntary, it's always on, and we call it the selfish system, and you might be thinking, well, if it's selfish, isn't that bad? Is it a bad system? Well, it's really not. Your selfish system has many different functions that are vital to you. It commands your habits and your routines. It can lead to random flashes of insight. And so, like, if you've ever been working on a puzzle or a math problem and you've gotten up and left the room, and then all of a sudden, you get a flash of insight, that's your selfish system there. But in contrast, the selfish system, it's largely governed by your emotions, okay? But the selective system is largely governed by you. It's under your conscious management, and using your selective system, you can deliberately, selectively choose what you want to focus on, all right? And so it gives you both self-control and self-awareness. So you can use your selective system every time you pay attention closely while you're reading. Like listening to this right now, you're selecting what you want to focus on. Okay, so again, this crucial idea to understand about focus is that paying attention. It's not just a matter of focusing all your attention on a single object, right? It's also a matter of simultaneously tuning out, right, or discriminating against all the other things that are competing against your attention. So attention span. You got to be able to focus on one thing, but you've got to also block everything else out. And so there's this interplay between these two different systems. Okay, so our default state is more like the selfish system than the selective system. So just imagine how our early ancestors lived in caves without cell phones or the internet. So their priorities would have been things like finding food and shelter, avoiding dangerous predators, and they would have needed the ability to respond quickly and instinctively to the environmental demands. And these are tasks that the selfish system excels at, right? So, there's something that's like a big predator, like a bear or a wolf. Okay, fear. You feel fear, you run away from it. Or, hey, you're hungry, so you get, you want to go out and get food, or thirst. These are things that are vital for your survival. So the ability to sit down and work out a calculus problem, using selective focus was not something that the early people would have really needed. They would have had no use for that. Their needs and their priorities would have been survival, okay? And so we live in a new time period now. It's much different. We have much different cognitive demands. But cognitive science tells us that our default state, right, so the default state of our attention span, it's more like the selfish system rather than the selective system, meaning that by default, okay, we kind of float through life looking for food, shelter, companionship, these kinds of things, okay, but we're also able to selectively concentrate on things. Like, certainly you can selectively concentrate, but it's just that the default state is governed by our emotions and our selfish system. And of course, you can use conscious control to override this, but keep in mind that this is what cognitive neuroscientists show us. And you can read more about this in Goleman's book. But anyway, now we're going to look at, and if you know anything about basic psychology, you've probably seen this before, but this was developed by the psychologist Abraham Maslow, and he devised this hierarchy of human needs, and his theory holds that we're first motivated to fulfill needs for things like, breathing, food, water, sex, sleep, homeostasis, excretion. The next would be safety, like security, and the modern day employment resources, family, then after that, love and belonging, and so on and so forth. But basically, if you see this right here, what the idea is that before we move up the pyramid, so to speak, we need to fulfill the needs from bottom up to top. So that was video 13, and I want to show you guys some of video 14. The same things hold true here. This footage is not the footage that's in the final version. This is from an earlier take, but it's going to be very similar footage in the final version, so it's an accurate representation of what you're going to see. And also note that I think I'm going to start this off by showing you the second tip. We're going to skip the first one. I'll show you just a couple of the early tips here to give you guys a little taste of what you can expect out of video lesson 14. So I'm going to switch the screen and go to that now. The reason is that after an interruption, it takes most people up to 20 minutes or longer to get back to working on your original task. And this is really a staggering fact. And so when you do what's commonly called multitasking, what you're really doing is you're switching your focus from task to task at a rapid pace. You're not really doing two things at once. It's not really possible to be doing two things at once. It's more like switching your focus from one thing to the other. And think of it like a computer. You open up one program, then you switch to another program. So let's say, you've got a program open and you minus out of it so it's minimized, and you have something else open on the screen. That other program is still going on in the background just because you can't see it. And this is kind of what happens. So you switch your focus to one thing, switch your focus to another thing. Your brain keeps going on the other task, even though you might not realize it. And this is going to burn out your fatigue. It's going to burn out and fatigue you. Especially your focus. So stop multitasking, put everything else away, work on one thing at a time, and really stick to that one thing. The only exception is if you plan something to do and then something else that's more important pops up, then work on that. But anything else that pops up, go ahead and make a note of it and do it later, but don't stop your original task. So the next one is to stand up. So I've heard advertisements recently saying things like, sitting down is the new smoking. Well, I don't completely buy that, but a lot of doctors do agree that too much sitting is harmful for your health. And studies show that people who sit for long periods of time have an increased risk of death for all causes, even if they exercise frequently. And so, yeah, it is pretty scary, but the idea here is that, it's something as simple as just getting up every hour or so for a quick bathroom break or drink break, or even working standing up. So some libraries do have standing desks. You can buy your own, but I don't really recommend that because it is kind of expensive. You can also just use a filing cabinet or anything that's about head level, and you can study while you stand up. Every now and then I'll do that. I'll take my work over, put it on a filing cabinet that's about pretty comfortable level and work over there so I'm standing up. And this helps boost your focus. And the reason is because when you're standing up, it breaks up fatigue, helps you get more oxygen in. And but at the very least, just make sure after you've been sitting for an hour or so, just get up for a couple minutes, walk around. It's going to get the blood flowing again. You're going to feel better, and you'll get more done. Don't just sit for hours at a time and not ever get up and move around. So another thing here is the 2-minute rule, and this comes originally from David Allen. I'm not sure if he invented it. That's where I first got this idea from, although plenty of people do share this concept. But the idea here is that we often underestimate the amount of time that we can get done in 2 minutes. And when you have a bunch of tasks that are only going to take a couple minutes to do, they're going to add up if you don't do them, right? So the idea here is that whenever you have something that's only going to take you a minute or any time under 2 minutes really to get done, just go do it right away on the spot. Do it now. You can expand this to a 5 or 10 minute rule, whatever you want to do, but really just stop right now, take a look around your room. Look, is there anything that's you can put away or straighten up that you could do within 2 minutes? You might be surprised to learn that there's actually a lot of stuff around that you've probably neglected, but that's really only going to take a couple minutes to do it. So keep this in mind, the 2-minute rule. It's a great rule to live by and to use. So another one is to chew gum, and so studies show that gum chewing can boost your academic performance. And there was a study published in 2008. It was called something like the effects of gum chewing on math scores in adolescents, and they used, I think it was 100 8th grade students, and half of them chewed gum, the other half were told not to chew gum, and they let a whole spring semester pass. And the students that chewed the gum had better final grades and better standardized math test scores. There's another researcher, Kate Morgan, and from a separate study, in the study she also looked at gum chewing and academic performance and the results. and on academic performance, and her evaluation suggests that, and this is a quote, chewing gum helps us focus on tasks that require continuous monitoring over a long amount of time. So boosting your focus is something you can do by chewing gum, and they're not sure exactly why, as far as I know. Something I also recommend is to have snacks. If you study for an hour or so, drink a glass of juice or orange juice, Gatorade, or some grapes, something that's going to keep your blood sugar steady, because I know studies do show that if your blood sugar is low, you're not going to be able to focus. So definitely want to make sure that you're replenishing the glucose. Okay, so I'm going to cut that off rather abruptly because, as you can see here, there's really 36 to about 37 minutes worth of footage. So there's plenty more to learn in this video. There's a lot packed into it. So you can get that when you get into the course, when I make it available, which I'm going to do very soon. So you'll want to watch out for that. So that's a preview of video 13 and video 14. And so I don't have a whole lot more to add to the course. There is some more videos that I am going to add in here. But we're getting close to the end. I'm getting close to wrapping this up and making this available for you to get access. So I'm going to get back to what I was talking about at the beginning of the lesson. I was going to tell you about how you can save at least 5 days worth of time in the next year. So that's what I'm going to go to now. But watch out for the time management transformation. It's going to be available really soon, and I think you're really going to enjoy it. How can you get back at least 5 days worth of time over the next year? Well, to answer this question, we need to start with an even simpler one. So, can you make at least an extra 20 minutes per day? Ask yourself, can you do that? And I think that we all can, unless you're just insanely busy. But there's got to be a way you can fit in just an extra 20 minutes per day. Maybe if your schedule is so really jam-packed, you can study for 10 minutes twice a day. Maybe make an extra 10 minutes in the morning, an extra 10 at night. Or even split it up into 4 different 5-minute sessions throughout the day. Doesn't matter, but in order for this to work for you, you need to be able to make an extra 20 minutes a day. No more, no less. I just want you to stop and think about how you're going to do this. So how are you going to make an extra 20 minutes a day? Make sure that you can do that, okay? And so imagine if you could do that, right? So you're going to set aside an extra 20 minutes a day to study every day for the next week. What would happen? How much time would you be saving here? Well, that would save you, that would give you about 2.3 hours of extra study time, okay? So that's 2.3 hours of extra study time that you would gain. All right, so what if you did this every day for a month? So what if you made an extra 20 minutes to study every single day for a whole month? Well, this would give you about 9.3 extra hours of study time. Okay, and remember, 9.3 extra hours of study time, that's coming from just putting in an extra 20-minute session here or there every day for a month. So not really that much extra work on your part, but it's adding up already, we can see, to over 9 hours of study time. Now, stick with me here, because if you did this every day for a year, you can do the math for yourself if you don't believe me, but it would come out to almost exactly an extra 5 days worth of time. Okay, so how do you make an extra 5 days worth of time to study over the next year without really doing that much extra work, right? So all you do is you put in 20 extra minutes a day, okay? And you can split it up into 10 minutes, here, 10 minutes there, or even 4 or 5-minute sessions. It doesn't really matter. Just get in this extra 20 minutes a day. And that's going to add up to an extra 5 days worth of time without really that much extra work on your part. That's the beauty of this. So, rather than, setting aside an extra 5 days to just study for 5 days straight, okay, who's going to do that? That's impossible, okay? But the way you can get the equivalent of that is just putting in a little bit here or there. So the key concept here in time management is what I call time windows. And so what are these time windows? Well, I call time windows these very short windows of opportunity that pop up. They can be as short as 15 minutes, 40 minutes at the maximum, but they're going to pop up throughout your day. And you're probably not going to ever get that much done during any single 20-minute session, but they add up quickly. And when I say quickly, I mean quickly. So if you just tried this for a week, you just put an extra 20 minutes in for a week, okay, every day, that's going to give you an extra over 2 hours worth of extra time, okay, that you didn't have, right? Or that you weren't taking advantage of before. So good times to look for these time windows. One of the biggest ones is in between classes. So if you're a college student, one of the biggest wastes of time is the dead time between classes. So you might think, oh, I've only got 30 minutes in between classes. What am I going to do with it? Well, I'm going to go wait in line at Starbucks at the library, for the whole time, and then, have 5 minutes left, I'll sprint into class, talk to my friends and stuff. And that's fine. I love coffee. You got to get your coffee. But what I'm saying is that, the time in between classes, you might think, well, I need a couple hours to sit down and study. Well, okay, if you can block off a couple hours to study, sure, that's going to be ideal. But these long blocks of time are not always going to be there for you, especially if you're working part-time or full-time while you're taking classes. You might not be able to make, these long 2 or 3 hour, 4 hour blocks of time to study in. So what you can do is kind of sneak in a little bit of studying here or there, just these short little 15 to 40 minute sessions here or there. And you don't really have to make that much time. You can look at how you're wasting time and replace it. So if you're spending a lot of time, just goofing off between classes, you're just going out and talking with your friends, or you're just going for a little walk, listen to some music between classes. Okay, a better way to spend the time would be to find a building in between your classes, go find a library, just sit there for 20 minutes and review your notes. Okay, so you can try to find these extra windows between classes. Another time is first thing in the morning, right? So you get up in the morning, do your morning routine, whatever you do, get dressed, shower. I guess you should probably shower before you get dressed for obvious reasons, but you get up, eat, whatever you do, then just make an extra 20 minutes to review your notes there. Okay, so that's another key time to do it. You can also do it before bed. And before meals or after meals is another time. So another big time waster for college students in particular is meals. Okay, so I usually map off, when I was in college, in undergrad, I would map off about an hour to an hour and a half to eat on my schedule to plan my day. But really, you don't need to spend that much time eating. You can just grab something, eat it in 20 minutes, and then, so that's another place you can cut out time, and you can replace the time that you're wasting by just sitting there, and I'm not saying don't go out and be social, because every now and then, sure, you want to go out with your friends and take an hour and a half to eat and just relax and enjoy life a little bit, sure. But, one good time to squeeze in a time window, an extra little 20-minute, 30-minute, 40-minute study session, however much time you have, is at the end of meals or before a meal. Okay, and so now, if you did this twice a day, so just think, if you made an extra 20 minutes in the morning and an extra 20 minutes in the evening, okay, that would be double, okay, which is staggering, right? So if you do this, you make 20 minutes a day every day to study for the next year, okay, that's going to give you 5 days back, a little bit over 5 days. It's pretty close to exactly 5 days if you want to do the math for yourself, but give or take. So now let's say that you did this twice a day, right? That would come up to 10 days worth of extra time, okay? So you would have added the equivalent of 10 days worth of time just by making 40 minutes a day. And it's not like you're sitting down for 40 minutes straight. You're breaking that up throughout the day to make sure that throughout the day, you just take a little 10 minutes here, 15 minutes there, 20 minutes there, to go over your notes. And again, the key here is that you're probably not going to really get that much done during any one 20-minute session, okay, or any 15-minute session, but it's all going to add up. And in a short period of time, even as fast as a week or a couple weeks, you're going to notice a big difference. So a really good way to utilize these time windows is there's two big ways, okay? So there's when you're studying, to get in some review, right? So a big dilemma that a lot of students have is, should you spend your study time, should you spend the bulk of it reviewing stuff that you already know, or should you spend it, keeping up with the new stuff and getting on top of the new stuff? Okay, so let's say you go to a class Tuesday and you learn a bunch of new stuff in the class, right? So how do you split up your study time so that you can keep reviewing the stuff that you've already covered, but also make sure that you learn the stuff from the new material, okay? And so a good way to do it is to spend the bulk of your time. So, you'll want to block off an hour or two, a couple hours, however much time you think you'll need to really sit down with the new material and really digest it, really get into it, okay? But then once you've learned it, okay, once you've already learned it, you understand it, then to review it, all you have to do is, just sneak in a little 20-minute session here or there, be consistent about it every day, and that way you can spend most of your time during the day, most of the time that you block off, you can spend learning the new stuff or even getting ahead and previewing stuff for future lectures. And then, you just sneak in a little bit of review. I had a friend of mine who is at a really good medical school now, and I think he was a 4.0 student. In the science GPA was a 4.0, and I think his overall GPA was a 3.9 because he got an A minus in Spanish or something like that freshman year. And he said he was still learning how to study. That's why. But anyway, what he would do is the way he would study is he would spend most of his study time, like he would make a schedule that he'd block off, an hour, 2 hours, or more, depending on how busy he was, to keep up with new material and work on new material either before class or the new material that was just presented to class. But okay, at the start of each of these study sessions, he just set aside 20 minutes, 25 minutes to just quickly just review his old notes, just read over them or go over them in his head, or kind of talk through them out loud or with a partner, just to review them quickly, so that way he could spend the bulk of his time learning the new material. And then, of course, a couple days before the test, it's a good idea to block off time to make sure that you go back and do a very thorough review of everything. But the point here is that if you study a little bit over time and you fit it into these little time windows whenever the time pops up, you can get a lot done. So that way, when you sit down to actually review for a test, you're not going to need that much time. It's going to speed up your review so much faster. Okay, and so that's one big way to use time windows. And so another way is to, so if you kind of live and work deadline to deadline, which is what I did before I knew any better when I was in college. And by deadline to deadline, I mean, if you've got a test in one class, then all week until that test, you're going to be focusing just on that class, right? Or if you've got a paper due, okay, the days up until the paper is due, you're going to be focusing just on that paper, all right? And so, essentially, yes, that is what you want to do. If you've got a big paper due, then you're going to want to delegate most of your study time to preparing for that paper specifically. But at the same time, if you neglect everything else on your schedule and just focus on one thing at a time completely, once that paper's done, you might get the paper done and think, okay, I have some breathing room now, I can relax. But you'll really find that, there was all this other stuff that you put off to get ready for the paper. And so now you're buried in all this stuff that you've got to get caught up on. So really, it's kind of like whiplash, it's kind of like out of the frying pan into the fire. You're not really that much better off. Same with studying for tests. What you should do if you have a big test coming up is, you'll want to allocate most of your study time leading up to the test, obviously preparing for that test, okay? But if you just neglect everything else, put everything else off, once you get done with a test, you're not really going to have all this, breathing room, because you're probably going to then have to get caught up on everything else that you put off, okay? And so a good way to just kind of sneak in some studying or sneak in some work here or there is to just take, 20 minutes here or there, 15 minutes here or there, and spend some time I describe it as sneaking in some studying. So I did this once, I think I had a big lab report due. I had an organic chemistry test, and I had like a calculus. I had calculus, right, and I had to keep up with that too. But I had a test and a lab report for organic chemistry due on about the same day. So that's what I was really focused on leading up till the big day when I had the big deadlines. But I knew that at the same time I didn't want to just not look at any calculus at all and get behind in that. So what I did was I'd just make just quickly 20 minutes here, 20 minutes there every day. To just look at my calculus notes. And sure, it wasn't as good as if I had sat down for a couple hours with it, but, once I was done with the organic chemistry test, and I said, okay, now I got to get caught up on calculus. Sure, there was still a little bit I had to get caught up on, but I wasn't nearly as far behind as I would have been if I had just neglected it for days and days and days to do the other stuff. So those are really two good uses of time windows. And the last use of time windows is, there's a third one too, and this is just for fun, so we all have things that we want to do, maybe just explore something for your intellectual curiosity. Let's say you want to learn a foreign language, okay? Now, if you want to learn a foreign language, it's going to take from scratch, it's going to take hours and hours and hours and hours worth of work. It's going to take some hard work, discipline, dedication, okay? But let's say that you don't have that much time because you're a full-time student. So just say that let's say you want to learn Spanish, for example, okay? Say that you were to set aside just 20 minutes a day, every day for the next year to work on studying Spanish, okay? And let's say that your knowledge of the Spanish language is basically zero. You don't really know anything except you know how to say yes, which is sí, and you already know how to say no because that's the same as in English. And that's basically all you know about Spanish. Okay, so obviously if you were to study Spanish for 2 hours a day every day for the next year, you'd be well on your way to, you'd be way farther ahead if you did that, okay, obviously. But what if you just spent, 20 minutes a day studying? After a week or two, you probably wouldn't be that far along, but after a month of doing that, okay, you'd be making progress. After another month, after another month, after another month, what would probably happen is after a whole year had gone by, you would have you would be much further along. So compared to, 0% mastery of the Spanish language, you would be in much better shape without really putting in that much time and effort on any given day. So there would be no day that you're really, working that hard necessarily. It's just these little 20-minute sessions every single day, and you're going to learn a lot. So, I did this before with kind of like, I used to go on dictionary.com and read words. And so, like every day for a couple months, I didn't stick to it for a whole year, but I would read the word of the day on dictionary.com, and it would take maybe like 5 minutes a day, right? But then after a couple months, I would look back and I realized, wow, like I've really learned a lot of words. And like I would then go out and I'd hear the words in conversation. And I'd be like, wow, that's awesome. Like I learned that from dictionary.com, blah, blah, blah. But so again, you really want to look for these time windows, and the idea is that in the long term, okay, every minute that you spend studying or working on projects or whatever it is, every minute counts, okay? It's all going to add up in the long run. So you really got to think about this in terms of, how can I put a little bit in and get a lot out? And in the short term, you're going to be putting a little bit in and you're not going to be getting much out. But in the long term, from putting just a little bit extra in every day, just doing a little bit every day, you're going to get a tremendous amount out, all right? So a logical question now is, well, I don't want to wait a whole year, okay? I want extra time. I want more time to myself. I want more time to study and get my work done so that I can have more time to enjoy my life and relax, do whatever I want to do. But I'm not going to wait a whole year, okay? I get the idea here of time windows. It's cool. It sounds good. I can make an extra 20 minutes a day. Sure, I'll try it, whatever. But I don't want to wait a whole year. I need time. I need help now. I'm behind now. Need to get caught up now, whatever the case is. And so what do? Well, the answer, okay, is going to be in the time management transformation. All right, so you don't have to wait a whole year to start getting back all this extra time. All right, you're going to learn how to do it from the first lesson in the time management transformation all the way till the end. There's tons of tactics and strategies, other tips and tricks, just like this one. And this is really a small part of the course. Okay, there's so much more here, but it's more so than just tips and tricks and tactics. It's forming a strategy. I want to give you a time management strategy, time management plan that you can kind of give you a blueprint or a foundation for managing your time. Because in time management, I've learned from experience, you got to do things in a certain way. You've got to get all of the foundation built, get all the puzzle pieces together, get it all to fit, and you're going to do really well. So it's coming out very soon. And so you'll want to watch for that. So thank you for this video. I hope you found this helpful. I hope you enjoyed getting a little look at the upcoming time management transformation course. Let me know if you have any questions or concerns. And if there's anything you want me to add into the course, let me know ASAP, because this is coming out from the time I'm filming this video. I'm probably going to have this done by the end of the day today. And it's going to be available for you to get. So go ahead and let me know ASAP. Maybe I'll add something else in, film an extra video for you guys, whatever. And I can always, once the course is open and you guys go through it, and a lot of people go through it, and I get some feedback, if there's stuff that people found wasn't added in, I can go back, I can make more videos, put extra stuff in. It is a lifetime membership. Once you buy into the time management transformation, it's a lifetime membership. It's not like you have to pay a certain fee every month. You pay a one-time price, and then you'll get all of this content. As I said, there's about 5 hours worth of stuff added already. There's going to be a good handful more videos that I'm going to add to it before the course is finalized. But if I go back later and I add more stuff to it, expand on it, and as the times change, as things change, I'm going to adapt this. If new research comes out about new time management strategies or new things that are working, I'll go back and I'll change it. I'll put some more stuff in. If technology changes, some of the technologies mentioned in this course, if that changes, of course I'll go back and edit it. But I'm really trying to knock it all out on the first run here. So if there's anything last minute that you want to be put in this course, let me know ASAP. But other than that, I'll let everybody know when this is available. So thanks again.